down.
Welcome back to another episode of Mountaineer Kingdom Dude Talk. This episode, we'll be talking about the differences between the candidates and their policies and the cover-up of one party in particular.
This one's going to be a fun one. Talking about some politics. That never gets us in trouble.
Never.
It wasn't that funny.
Well, it's going to be.
Let's just dive right into it.
Dive right into it. The thing that's standing out the most to me is this rigged election already with this media coverage. I'm sorry, the media, the Democratic Party, of whitewashing and gaslighting the American people. They scream racism to one side, but practice racism in front of us. They don't hold their candidate to task. They will crucify the opposite side. And Trump gives you plenty of stuff to talk about, whether you like him or not.
Right.
Nick's going to share a funny clip with us here in a minute about how he got a recommendation from Bill Barr, but they're lying to our faces, and there's a lot of people that's not informed that just go along with whatever they're being told.
Well, my first point would be it's interesting how the people that are actually following the ex-Biden-Harris campaign, the now Harris-Walz campaign, this is the party that claims if President Trump is elected again, he'll do away with democracy, which we're not a democracy anyway, we're a republic. But he'll do away with democracy. He'll do away with voting and elections and crap. I don't even know where they get that line from. But this is the same party that screams democracy will be taken away, that right under their noses, their right to vote for their primary candidate was stripped from them. Because for months they were saying that Joe Biden's health is fine. He's okay to be president. He's great. He did so much for the country, blah, blah, blah. But then after he got demolished in the debate and he looked like a buffoon that everyone knew he was before, they said, oh, my gosh, this guy can't be our president. So behind closed doors, and I just read this, actually. I can't confirm this, but so don't chastise me.
YouTubers.
Yeah, YouTube trolls.
Get him.
Nancy Pelosi supposedly threatened Joe Biden, not with death or anything like that, but said, you need to step down because of this and that and the other. So I don't know all the words. I'm not going to quote it. I'm not going to cite it, but I'm just saying that's what I read. Maybe we'll put it side up if I find it. But they shoved this guy out for good reason. I mean, he is not competent. But my whole point being is they put him through the primary, made him the candidate, and now all of a sudden all those people that want democracy had no choice to put Kamala in there, who, by the way, out of 15 candidates, I believe, in the 2020 election, she was dead last, had not one single vote, not one delegate, not even a vote in her own state. She was the first one to drop out, and now all of a sudden she's the savior of the Democratic Party. It's fishy to me, people. Fishy, fishy.
She's never won a primary.
She's never won a game of Scrabble, I guarantee it. I've never been to Europe either.
Where's your laugh sound bite?
I'm not allowed to have the. I'm not allowed to
Josh,
have that.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
That sound you can have. We'll use that one. What was it? August 10th. Just we'll say 2 weeks ago, had an approval rating in high 30s, 39%,
38%,
38, 39%. Approval rating, and now she's leading in the polls.
I've never really put too much weight into the polls, and I certainly don't believe the polls coming out now because there's just no way. I think it's another ploy of the media to make people fearful and to say, oh my gosh, my vote doesn't count. I'm not going to go out and vote because she's already winning. People don't buy into it. Don't buy into it. Look at the policies. Look at the policies.
There's probably only been one poll she's ever won.
Well, we're going.
And she's probably not even good at that.
Yeah, I find it interesting that
our entire political conversation is
I know you're trying to hold it together.
just based around two separate ideologues that are in competition, man. It's just frustrating for me.
Well, it's good and evil, and anybody can argue with us that the Republicans aren't good, blah blah blah. And I probably would agree to an extent. Their personalities, their people, but our standards, our viewpoints that line up, are still good.
I'm not even talking about good and evil. I'm talking about one camp just circling stories and the other camp circling stories, and nobody's actually talking to each other.
Because she's hiding. Do you remember what Biden did the last 3 months of the 2020 campaign?
And she's doing that now, and it's working. It's a strategy to not be held accountable.
Well, if you don't talk,
it's-
but so based on the polls, I just pulled it up from Real Clear Politics, and they're a great source to be able to look at a whole lot of different polls. The Fox News poll on Thursday the 15th, which was the last national poll that was taken, Trump was ahead by 1 point. But then they did multiple candidates, and they included Kennedy and a couple other folks. Trump and Harris were tied. Emerson poll had Harris leading by 4. But the polls that actually matters, that tends to be pretty accurate, is the Rasmussen poll, and it's got Trump up by 4 points.
But you see again, though, I still don't care. You know, there's a lot of people out there that will blindly follow that and say, "Oh yeah, that poll's correct because that's the one that has Trump leading." But then they'll say,
Well,
you know
no,
what I mean?
just Rasmussen traditionally, and
I agree.
in my experience when I did political consulting, Rasmussen poll was usually the more accurate, along with the Cook political report.
And it depends on what network you're watching.
Yeah, that's the reason
That's a
why,
big
like, because
right.
Fox News almost always has a Republican candidate leading. The CNN, MSNBC almost always has a Democrat candidate leading.
and that's wrong.
But here's what's
wrong.
interesting is Pennsylvania is a battleground state, and right now the polls has Trump up by 1 in Pennsylvania, and that's an Emerson poll.
I'm glad you.
I seen a news clip the other day that there was a CNN reporter on Stephen Colbert's late night talk show.
Yeah, that was
Did you
great.
see that?
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, you guys are CNN's very well known for their clear and conscious,
objective views?"
And the whole audience started laughing, and you could see how awkward Stephen Colbert was. And then the reporter was like, "Was that meant to be a laugh track?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't meant to be a laugh track."
Right.
And
But it is now.
But it is now.
Yeah.
So, bringing up CNN, and then you brought up Pennsylvania, and this is how CNN covers this story. Pennsylvania is, we'll say, we accept the poll, Trump's up 1 point. Had an amazing candidate. I'm glad they didn't pick him. Josh Shapiro, who I think he has a 63% approval rating for his state. It is a swing state. You need to win Pennsylvania. If you're going to win the White House, you got to win Pennsylvania. There's several other states you have to win. Why would why would she pick Tim Walz
She wasn't allowed.
over Josh Shapiro? Why wasn't she allowed?
Go ahead, tell us.
Because they're racist. Josh Shapiro is a Jew, and the Democratic Party is anti-Semitic.
Say what?
There's no other way around it.
No.
How do you pick a governor like Tim Walz who allowed rioters to destroy one of the major cities, the major city in his state,
No.
allowed it to happen?
Josh, those were peaceful riots.
We'll show some videos. You better get
Those
them
were,
ready.
Those were peaceful.
So the polls that are coming out from the Jewish Americans is, for the first time in a long time, they are leaning very heavily Republican this election.
Well, they should, because the Democrats are pro-Palestine and Hamas. They're pro-terrorist and killing Jews. That's
Well, that and Trump's son-in-law is Jewish.
and his grandchildren are Jewish.
You know what, though? I just wish we can go back to a day, if there ever was such a day. Why do we have to say the Jews support Trump, the blacks support Trump, the whites, the Hispanics? Why can't we just say Americans that want a better America, a safe America, a great economy, a chance to survive? Why can't
Because
we
there's
just-
a value proposition with
What?
aligning with races. It
was a
it is
rhetorical
the-
question, Andy.
It is the American way.
That was rhetorical.
But I mean, Josh brought up the fact that the Democrat Party is anti-Semitic. It was like, okay, here's
politics.
here's proof that the Jewish Americans are leaning this direction for the first time in in decades.
Right.
But
because they're waking up to this
But the
fact.
thing is if you look at American history, the fighting that's going on now has always been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you study the first election, how much politics went into that first election, it would have almost felt like you were reading news headlines from today's newspapers. In the second election, and when John Adams was elected president, all of the stuff that went on there, all the politics that went on to with him getting the nomination and ultimately being elected. And history proves that, like, George Washington was one of the best leaders, not just in American history, but global history.
Oh, yeah.
But yet, when you go back and look, the majority of Americans were backing him, but all of the politics and all of the fake polling that was going on, even then, it's we have rose-colored glasses on when we start looking at history, but it was just as dirty, it was just as crappy as it is now.
I would agree, and it's sad. It's sad that it's still that way. But going back to the point of how they didn't select Josh Shapiro, and like Josh said, I'm glad he didn't, because that could have been a major state that we would have lost, honestly. Mm-hmm. And that's what's mind-boggling, that they're so corrupt, because there's really no explaining why they didn't pick him, other than they're anti-Semitic. And the proof is in the the proof is in the pudding, where they really do accept this pro-Palestine movement and these anti-Israel protests, and all these, I'm sorry, commie liberals, they have no idea what Palestine stands for. And a lot of these protesters are of the LGBT QRSTUV community. And if they went over to Palestine and say, "Hey, I'm here to protest for you," they would say,
"You gonna
welcome,
die.
welcome, come on up to the rooftop. I'll show you a nice view." And they would toss them off the roof.
Yeah.
That's not my words. That's what they do over there.
So when you start talking about Palestine, there was the vice president of Iran stepped down shortly after getting the nod for it, because he's tired of being a Palestine proxy. But one of the big reasons why I think they went with the vice presidential candidate that they did was to combat against J.D. Vance with having a military background, and understand, but that is
Wait,
that is where the
can you give me that look one more time in that camera? We got to show the audience that look. There we go.
Military background. Do you know anything about his military background?
I have a military background.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now look it up real quick.
I've done some research on it.
Okay.
but
Not much,
the
but enough to-
proclaimed military background. Like if they really wanted to combat him, they would have went with what's his name out of Arizona, because he was an astronaut.
Yeah.
Like he's the only candidate that has walked in space.
Supposedly.
So,
Well, and he was a fighter pilot on top of that. So like,
but this is going back to one of the opening statements it was made, was how the media is covering their candidate.
Mm-hmm.
It's Kamala wasn't in charge of the border.
Baloney.
Yes, she was.
Videotapes everywhere.
There's a
of
video,
Biden saying that
and he's
she
in a
is the
mask.
czar.
He's still wearing a mask, and he's putting her in charge of. I don't think he ever used the word czar.
No, he didn't.
But what he said was describing what a border czar would be.
Right.
And then, which is an impossible task to give anyone, let alone her. What's she going to go do? Go to Europe and then laugh about not going to the border? Like,
Well, that's the thing. The media did cover some of those things and asked her questions. When you're going to go to the border? When? We're going to go to the border. Well, you haven't been yet. Well, I've never been to Europe either. Such a condescending
and then
comment.
laughs
back.
it off.
Right. Like, and then just change the subject. They don't hammer down on the big issues, and because she has no answers. She had no answers when she was vice president, and she certainly has no answers now.
well, that was an unscripted question they weren't expecting, so they didn't have a scripted answer for it.
Which I think we're on 27, 28 days of not answering
Media silence, yeah.
any questions to the press, because it's their strategy. They know Trump says what's on his mind, whether you love him or not. He's going to speak what he thinks is truth. 99% of the time, I agree with what he says.
It's great.
Yeah.
There's times I think he can get distracted. And
I think
needs
I
to
can
stay
agree
on
with
point.
everything he says. Just how he says it needs to be different. I mean, that's
fair.
That ties back into what we talk about in some of our biblical talks and conversations in marriage and relationships. It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
You know,
She's a buffoon. She's an idiot.
We know that
Right. And he could say that same exact phrase
Yeah.
by saying, She has no answers to anything about border security. She has no answers on the economy. She can't even, tell us what the inflation rate is right now. That's still calling her a buffoon and an idiot without saying those words.
It just goes back that he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit to that. So I mean, for decades, the Republican Party was criticized for not standing up to the media, and George W. Bush was heavily criticized for trying to work the way that he would have speeches and answer questions based on what's going to give him the most positive media coverage. And I'll never forget Rush Limbaugh saying, he's got an R next to his name. He's never going to get positive media coverage. Just face it, say what's on his mind, and move on. And we've never had that until Donald Trump got into the candidacy and ultimately president, when he's like, no, I'm just not going to do it. I don't have to pander to you because I don't have to be here. I'm doing this because I want to do it.
His press conferences were legendary when he would say, your news network is just, you're a joke. But ask me your stupid question.
You know what?
It just turned around and just put his back towards him. I'm not going to talk until you stop talking.
I've been working in the government space for almost 20 years, and nobody working in the government could get away with behaving the way that the leaders in our government do during election season. It's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Our organization right now is posturing for the changeover. It's a standard practice for the people at the policy level. They actually have a changeover book it's like a smart book for each organization that says, hey,
prepare yourself.
Whoever is next, here's a cheat sheet for how things go. And if we operated in the capacity that politicians operate, with a lack of professionalism and all that nonsense, we would flounder. It's just stupid to me that we spend so much time focused on this bickering bullcrap whenever day-to-day activities are actually tied to tangible real-life data, and we're choosing our leaders based off of petty high school drama. It's stupid, and it really makes me angry.
I don't think we do. I don't think we pick him off of that. I think I pick my president based off of how he votes according to God's word. What does his policies, who lines up closer to the word?
I agree with you, but I'm talking that the general scheme of maneuver is this drama. It's stupid drama.
It's because that's what they want to do. It's smoke and shadows, or
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and shadows.
They're trying to take us away from really what matters. And so I was going to say earlier on, if we take away, so us as Christians, we believe in forgiveness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we just put aside all the things that President Trump did in his younger days or in his previous marriages or whatever, okay, in his personal life, set it aside, because if he asks for forgiveness, and I'm not saying he has or not, I don't know, he can be forgiven. Same as Kamala, same as Joe Biden. If they put their sins on the table and say, Lord, forgive me, they can be forgiven. That's off the table now. Let's not even talk about the personal lives. Let's talk about what they stand for.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because we have all this other stuff we're trying to talk about that doesn't matter.
Right.
Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about our America.
Bingo.
Let's talk about, President Trump just put this video out on Instagram the other day, and it was brilliant, I think. Has a bunch of whiteboards, has a bunch of goods all over the place, eggs, milk, and Coke and stuff, talking about, take a look at this. And I'll send this to you, Nick, and you can post this up. But he's talking about the cost of your basics. Everything is going up. Eggs up 48%, cookies 27%, butter 31%, and that's just the beginning, is what he's saying. So everything that we need in to survive. And I'm not saying we need cookies. You know what I'm getting at. People, don't take this ridiculous.
I need cookies.
But everything that we need to survive is up a minimum. Let's just say 20%.
But just to play devil's advocate here a little bit, how much of that is all the COVID funding that went out, some of which he approved?
Who, Trump?
Yep.
Okay.
Just because you start throwing more dollars into the system that wasn't supposed to be there,
you're exactly
you're
right.
Get tremendous inflation.
So my answer to that would be, he was put between a rock and a hard place. The economy was booming when he was president. And then COVID happened. Whatever your views are on COVID, how it happened, where it came from, it doesn't even matter. It happened.
COVID.
Okay? Yeah, it happened. And now we know that Rat Fauci said we need to close the economy. We need to do all these things, even though he's backtracking now. All over the place on the internet, he's saying all these things. So Trump had to close the economy. So I don't like government handouts. I really don't. However, The COVID money saved businesses, saved lives. The vaccine did come out, whether you believe in taking it or not, which I don't, but it did come out during his presidency. But now the Democratic Party is touting that they came out with it and all this stuff. So you're exactly right. Prices of things went up, but in the same economy, when everything opened back up, it would have all leveled itself back out. Because now the Democrats are saying that Joe Biden created all these jobs. He didn't create anything. They came back because they lifted the COVID regulations.
He's taking credit for the bounce back jobs that Trump predicted was going to happen when he was able to open up the
You're
economy.
highlighting my biggest gripe. It's just it's a game. It's a freaking game, and it's playing like instead of actually talking about tangible truths, it's a matter of changing a perspective and highlighting something so that it makes me look good when you had nothing to do with it. It's just stupid. Like,
no, it is 100% a game. I mean,
right, but I operate in the world of tangibles, and this nonsense where it's gaslighting, it's garbage, and you're making people hate each other over it. Like WTF? Like why? Why are we freaking causing this infighting amongst ourselves because of a power play? It's stupid.
Because they know the majority of Americans aren't really going to look up at the record and see that these things weren't created, jobs weren't created. It was because of new policies that came in. And just take a look at the tax cuts that President Trump put into place. They're expiring. Maybe they already have. I forget what the date was. But it's going to cost the average American close to $5,000 a year in a tax increase because of the Democrats allowing the tax cuts. Why would you vote for anyone that simply says, we'll raise taxes? It used to be, I'm going to lower taxes. Why would you want your taxes to be raised?
That's the main reason why George H.W. Bush didn't get reelected, was no new taxes, and then a scenario popped up that he wasn't expecting and
had to raise taxes.
And had to raise taxes.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, I spent 3 years in the national politics scene doing consulting work, and it is an absolute game. But unfortunately, we have to elect candidates.
Somebody.
We have to elect somebody into the office to work, and the rhetoric that they often spill everywhere on the news media is not actually how they typically govern.
You're absolutely right, and that drives me up the freaking wall.
It does, but they can't get the donor base if they don't.
And you can't get the position without the freaking money because it's all about money. It's just insane to me that it needs so much. And each of these candidates right now are on social media. Hey, this is the world's most important election. And then you got freaking Obama coming on. All it takes is $5 and we can stop these. Like, there's greater things.
You know my favorite line? Elect me and I'll do this.
Vote for me.
Elect me and how about you do it now?
So here's my
Prove
question,
that you can do it
Andy.
now.
Hang on.
Yeah, she's vice president
Andy,
right now.
So what's the alternative? So here's
I don't know, integrity, truth.
No, that's not
actually portraying the policies that people talk about on a day-to-day basis. Hiring somebody that's a
Not my
freaking
question.
professional. God forbid we actually put somebody in the office that's competent.
So we don't. So the answer is to
passionate,
not.
are you?
So the answer is to not talk about it and let evil continue to.
No. The solution is to not cater to this conversation going back and forth between idiots and different media things, and actually tie it to tangible policies and documents that exist. Our government is foundationally built on policy documents that drive what's actually going on. Executive orders, freaking laws. Holy freaking crap! There's 1,000-page documents that our politicians put forward that are actual tangible documents, but we don't read it because all we're focused on is stupid freaking media and all the bull crap that they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's nonsense.
There are foundational things that this country can just go back and stand on if we would just stand on
If
them.
we would just read the stuff that's being produced, then
that's
the
the thing,
media
though.
doesn't matter. Like, you go on the Googles and you type, hey, tell me about Senate Bill, whatever. And we're not even
You think he's
talking
fired
about
up?
Senate Bill. We're talking about
I can only
15
picture
different
one
news
thing
articles'
right now.
perspectives
I'll
right now.
tell you in a second.
Here's the
And-
problem.
And you don't actually read the source document. Like, it's so freaking simple, but we're so deluded and dissuaded from reality that we're just going to take somebody's word for it. It's like listening to a preacher instead of reading the Bible yourself. Same
Because
exact
it is
concept.
diluted. That's why they're $1,000 or 1,000-page documents. It's because these bills that are trying to get passed have all these pork bellies and hand the money going behind backs.
We have to pass the bill to read the bill.
Right. Yeah. So what I'm getting at, like, if you want to, let's just say, if you want to close the border, why can't I just have a cover sheet of a fax, and then the next sheet saying from the office of the United
Close the
States of
border.
America, close the border.
That's it. It's an executive order.
Well,
Done.
here's my one gripe about President Trump, and it's not. There's not many.
No, here we go.
He started the executive order stuff. Now, when he did it, I agree. Well, I'm just saying, like he really he really hammered a lot during his presidency because he couldn't get anything done. So he did. He opened up a Pandora's box with a lot of his executive orders.
The executive orders did increase, but they've increased exponentially from each president. I think since FDR.
When I say executive,
when I say started, I didn't mean like he introduced the idea of it. I'm just saying he really did start a precedent of if I can't get my will done in the Senate and the House, I'm just going to executive order the thing. How many times did Biden do this thing?
When I said executive order, I mean someone who's in an executive position to dictate a leadership directive, whether that's a policy statement or whatever it is. Not necessarily a presidential executive order. Shoot, what I do every day is governed by those things. But I'm talking about somebody who has authority dictating this is what we're doing. That's what I'm referencing. That's how the government operates. We need somebody to tell us what to do. Outside of that, you can't operate. Congress and the executive branch have to balance each other out. Like, shoot, COVID was an executive order. Like, all that crap happened, and then 2 years later, because of all the legalities, all of it was invalidated. Dudes left the service because there was an order that said you have to get COVID vaccine until somebody raised a red flag, filed a lawsuit, and then it was invalidated, nullified 2 years later when dudes' careers were already ruined.
A very good friend of ours lost her job over that bullcrap.
Well, you know, when government was formed, it was just to keep people safe, basically, in check, because we were allowed to govern ourselves, but there had to be someone that I can't remember the exact quote. I just read this, and I'm reading again, by the way.
Good job.
Nice.
Finish Lord of the Rings.
That's just tough. I've already seen the movies. My point being is we should be able to govern ourselves and make our own decisions. But you know, our foundation was founded on the Bible and our biblical laws. That basically the biggest law is to love one another, and you know, do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Mm-hmm. So if we put all this crap aside, and I'm just going to use the LGBT community. Hear me out here. I'm not going to bash them. I'm not, because I don't bash them. I do care for them. I wish they would see how God created them in His own image and would change their ways. But in America, you have the same rights as a straight person, right? So if someone's gay, wouldn't you think that they would rather have lower gas prices and good jobs and more money to spend to go on vacation and stuff? Why would they choose a candidate that says we openly love you and welcome you for who you are, but I'm still going to tax you and the economy is going to be crap? When there's another party that says, I don't care what you do really, but our economy is going to be stronger and the prices are going to go down. You see what I'm going?
You're going to get $1.89 gas again.
Like it's not our job to govern sin, okay? Unless it's hurting other people. Obviously, we can go say it's against the law to kill someone, but it's not against the law to be gay. It's against God's law, but it's not against the law.
No more drag shows in libraries.
Yeah, well, sure, but that's harming other. That's grooming. Those are things you can say. These are things. If you want to go to these things, you can go to those things. But it's not going to be in a public library.
It's not going to be funded by the government.
Yeah.
Right. Not be funded by the government. And now, of course, the abortion thing is going to come into play. That's harming someone else. It could be detrimental to the actual pregnant woman.
Yeah.
But it's killing another baby. I don't care what these new scientists or what these new liberals say. It's not a human being. It is. It's been biological
new
fact forever.
There's a new breed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Now,
There is.
I think that the radicals on both sides, but we'll go to the left on this one, have went so far left that your normal liberal, I don't know, your old school liberal is almost in the middle now.
Like the Nancy Pelosi.
You look at the
crazy.
political, and we had a comment based on something I said a while back about Joe Biden, or not Joe Biden, but Joe Manchin being a normal Democrat, and
who's now registered independent.
He's now registered independent, but the reason for that,
smart.
if you look at the political spectrum,
Which is what we are.
all the way on the very left, you've got socialism and communism, and all the way on the left, you got communism. All the way on the right, you got socialism, and in between there, you've got conservatism, you've got libertarianism, but then in the center, you've got the center, and then you've got Democrat, you've got liberal, then you got communist. And when I refer to Joe Biden as that like normal Democrat, that's that Democrat that is in between central and Democrat, or central and liberal is Democrat. Liberal is what we've got a lot in the office today with Harris and a lot of the other liberal Democrats.
Who was, by the way, voted the most liberal senator ever.
With the media cover-up saying that she's a moderate.
But that is a political spectrum that if you look in any political science textbook, that is how it's laid out. And you get your conservatives, well, Republicans are now leaning more left, and they're what the old Democrat used to be. And then you've got conservatism has moved a little bit closer to the Republican, and you've got libertarianism that's kind of moved a little bit closer to conservatism. And the whole spectrum has shifted left in the last really 25 years, and even a little bit longer than that.
Before we go, I still want to share this because it's great. And then when Andy was on his triad, the only thing I could think of was an Ace Ventura Pet Detective when he goes, and then he spews for like that 10 minute. That's
I think we need to get him fired up again.
So what I'm about to share is we all remember the AG Bill Barr under the Trump administration when he wouldn't do anything about the stolen election, and Trump was just fuming at him. So he just endorsed President Trump. So this is on Trump's Twitter feed, and there's I believe she's from CNN.
She's from CNN. I can't stand her.
She's actually interviewing Bill Barr, and she reads this tweet to Bill Barr's face that Trump did. I'm prefacing that. She's reading the tweet that Trump said about Bill to Bill's face.
Okay.
So this is what we're...
He responded in response to you saying you'd vote for the Republican ticket. Wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Based on the fact that I greatly appreciate his wholehearted endorsement, I am removing the word lethargic from my statement. Thank you, Bill.
This is what we're talking about.
It's classic Trump.
And that's Bill at the end laughing pretty hysterically that and he just
You
says,
needed to listen to it again.
yeah, just saying classic Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
again, love him or hate him, he's
a straight shooter.
he is a straight shooter.
So, but that's kind of the thing, and we'll wrap up soon. Is
Sure.
He's shooting and he's talking and he's out there active. You can see what his policies are. You know what his policies are.
You can go to his website.
Go to his
and
website.
see everything.
You can go to the Kamala Harris website and
Nothing.
Lower
It's-
groceries, lower prices,
it's-
housing for everyone, and they're just literally bullet points.
no, it's worse than that.
With no meat.
On Kamala's, it's donate, meet Kamala Harris, meet Tim Walz, take action, events, stores, join the campaign,
Yeah, there's nothing.
donate.
there's not even the bullet
nothing-
points.
There's nothing about
Wow.
policy. There's nothing about the direction they want to take the country in. It's not say anything. Let the other side do all the talking. We're not accountable for anything. We're just going to let the media do their job and run the defense for us, and they'll skate.
Yep.
Without God intervening, which he's in every election, without God, Trump will not be in office. If this is a man-made election and it's completely up to the public and the media, she's already in. It's going to take God to put him in.
I heard someone say that she's got more she's got more flip-flops than Walmart because all of her policies have changed in the last few weeks, according to what has been said.
And she's
not
stolen
what she's
them.
saying.
She's stolen policies.
Stolen policies. Now, just piggytail on that. Excuse me.
Piggytail.
They is that the term?
Piggyback.
Piggyback. Sorry, man, I'm off today.
You're struggling with your
Euphemisms. Piggyback on that. She was part of the bill that was passed on having tips and all these things being more scrutinized by the IRS as far as people weren't reporting them. So there was a bill that was introduced in the House and Senate. It was a 50-50 tie. And her being vice president is what? She's the tiebreaker. And so this bill makes it to where tips and all waiters and hospitality workers, stuff like that, you'd have to report them, and there was going to be more scrutiny on it. So would that imply, if she voted in the affirmative to pass that bill to make it harder, would that imply that she is trying to make it harder for tips to be made and stuff? Well, President Trump came out, I don't know, 3 weeks ago and was touting his, and I'm not going to tax Social Security or is it Medicare? I'm not going to tax this or that and the other, and I'm not going to tax tips on any hospitality workers and stuff like that. And that was in Minnesota, actually. And in the same state, same city, she had a little rally of 13 people and said the same exact thing. I'm not going to tip or tax tips. Meanwhile, she just voted in the affirmative to make it harder. She's a liar. And so we see all these things going back and forth. And I just want to point out where we started this thing is the comparison, how the media is covering these things. So we talked about the military record with Vance against Walls. J.D. Vance wrote a book, The Hillbilly Elegy, and there was a movie made about it. And I watched the movie. I didn't read the book, of course. But he highlights his military record. He never once said that he saw battle. Okay. He actually said that, I can't remember exactly all his quotes, but he told what he was, and he told that he went into a traditionally dangerous area, but thankfully he came out without seeing anything. He was 100% truthful about his military record. Okay. Never fired a weapon, never saw combat. Meanwhile, this other guy, Walls, he's out there on the campaign trail saying, I'm trying to get rid of these automatic weapons, the type of weapons that I carried in war.
Implying that he saw combat.
Implying that he carried a weapon in areas where weapons were needed. He never left anywhere. And he claimed that he retired as a commander,
command sergeant major. So, one, when you go overseas, you always have something strapped on. Doesn't matter, even if you're in freaking Kuwait.
Sure.
So you've got something strapped on. If you're a saw gunner, you're carrying a saw. I carried a saw. Thing's a pain in the butt, man. Freaking jabs you in the butt the whole time. Dude was, he was frocked is the term that's called, to command sergeant major, which is a command position of a E9 type guy. While he filled a billet and he was going through some academy. So invalidating the service up to that point, whatever. It is what it is. The dude served for 25, 30 years. And there's a lot of scrutiny based off of his final position and whether or not he did, and some of the testimonies from dudes who served alongside of him. The dude still put a uniform on. He still served in theater. But he still carried a weapon. You can punch holes in it all you want.
No, the difference is he added to his military to boast him up.
Right, and
so he retired before that he had to finish his training and to go actually do something is what.
Well,
what
he skipped out on a deployment. Right. There was some misinformation when the dude, which honestly isn't that common. People get out. But the Guard also has a different culture, too, so the guys knew each other forever. I don't know enough about the nuances of it, but, I mean, he got out because of a deployment. Shoot, dude, I got out because I didn't want to deploy anymore.
The point being, though, is you got out and you didn't put on resumes that you had a higher clearing, you had a higher title, you had all this stuff. You didn't go out and campaign
as far as you
differently.
know.
I know. But it just goes to the point, what else is he going to lie about? Right.
Well, yeah, you're right.
So during COVID in Minnesota,
he's a used car salesman. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, used car salesman. He had really strict regulations in Minnesota. Such extreme policies that thousands of jobs left the state of Minnesota.
There's like 19,000 businesses.
Something like that, yeah. And then but he allowed these big box stores, what they called, like these liquor stores and even strip clubs. They stayed open during COVID. So meanwhile, there's this woman, I didn't quote her name. She owned a wine and coffee barista shop, and she was shut down. She abided by the law or whatever it was. She closed down, but she saw all this stuff happening. So she said, I'm opening up. Guess what happened to her? He had the police go and arrest this woman. She got a sentence of 90 days and $1,000 fine. She served 60 of those days because a woman in America chose to open up her business so that she can make a livelihood. But here, our government is weaponized to attack American civilians, and we saw that against Trump, being politicized, charged and attacked by his political opponent. And then also during, you mentioned before, during the George Floyd riots, which I'm sorry a man died. I really am. But he was not someone that a statue should be erected over. He's not someone that his life should have been celebrated. Mm-hmm. His death should have been mourned the proper way because he died probably before his time. But reports show that actually he died, had lethal amounts of fentanyl in his body at his death. Anyway, Minneapolis, Minnesota riots because of this man, and they're called riots. Meanwhile, they're saying protest. The city was burning to the ground.
Yep.
Even black-owned businesses were burning to the ground.
A lot of minorities were hurt during that.
A lot of minorities. And guess who goes and creates a GoFundMe page to bail out all these fire starters and rioters?
Who?
Kamala Harris.
No way.
Yep. And so all these people that are criminals prior to, probably they had a bunch of priors, I guarantee it, are being arrested for setting fires and whatnot, but they got bailed out because of Kamala's GoFundMe pages. It's unbelievable what people are going to allow into our White House based on what their political affiliation is without looking in to the real topics. And I just want to make one more point, and then you can do whatever you want to do. If we focus on the policy, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? What policies better line up with a safer America, a stronger America? I mean, I got to lean towards the Republican side. There were no wars or even a hint of war in the 4 years that Trump was president. No terrorist attacks. He actually signed 7 peace agreements, I believe, one being the Abraham Accords, which is humongous.
It was huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
It's unbelievable. It's a yin and yang. That's what it is, really.
Well, it's the only thing I was going to add to that was how the media is presenting that information. For an hour and a half, loud sounds were at the assassination attempt. It wasn't even a shooting. They couldn't confirm that. The FBI goes out and says, well, maybe it was debris and he never really took a bullet.
Yep.
That, they cover it that way, but they cover Kamala and Tim Walz like they can do no wrong. There is absolute zero accountability from the media on their candidates. And I keep saying that is because the cover-up, the election fraud, we're seeing it a lot earlier this time around. We saw it early with Trump in the previous election, but we're seeing it up front. We're being told what you saw and what you heard wasn't what you heard and what you saw. There are videos that are being removed of the contradictions that we're talking about. I mean, forever, I don't know if they fixed it, that you couldn't go on Google and look up the Trump assassination.
Yep.
It wasn't there.
Yep.
It's how the media is portraying this information.
And meanwhile, the questions that they're asking Kamala are very similar to what they asked Joe Biden. What's your favorite ice cream? You know what they're asking her? Who's your favorite rapper?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the only question they ever asked her, but they're asking those type of questions that are sugar-coated, that are not hard, has nothing to do with her being president. And my favorite one is, what is your favorite cuss word?
That's what we're getting ready to talk about.
And she giggled and laughed and says, I really can't say it, but it ends with A-H.
And it starts with an M and it ends with an A-H.
She's trying too hard, people.
Trying too hard.
Trying too hard. It's race baiting. It's racial profiling in the opposite direction, which I actually say that racial profiling is. And again, I want to go back to the famous quote of Joe Biden. If you're trying to decide if you're voting for Trump or for me, then you ain't black. If that's not racist, I don't know what is.
That whole party is. Bring us home, Nick.
If you like today's episode, make sure to go all of our platforms, like, share, and subscribe. And hit our website at mkdudtalk.com. Reach out to us at our email at mkdudtalk@gmail.com. So for all the guys, Andy had to skip out a little early. So we appreciate everybody. Been great to have all the guys back for a episode of Dude Talk. It's been a while. So for all of us, thanks. Have a great day.